Well, we've got a few more calls, and
do it.
Whisper in Utah has some questions about, I think, some of the terminology we're using.
Yeah.
So, Whisper, what can we walk you through?
Hi. So I was just listening, and there's stuff like bear, otter, lion. I think there's cougar. I don't know. I got really confused, and I was like, I thought stuff like gay meant, bear meant like large gay men with hair, and like otter was like a twink or something. Are you guys saying it's something else? Because I'm not sure what it is. I'm not really into it that much.
Let's expand on that Urban Dictionary definition and go from there. Yeah.
And so I'm going to put this out there and say identity is what you make of it. And so the moment that you identify with a community, I feel like you belong. And so I definitely find that in bear community. I was talking to a friend this morning, and they are a person, a trans person, and they were like, I met one of the World Bear family, and I was having a moment of self-doubt, and, I was really in my emotions, and, I'm identifying as trans and coming into my female aspects, but they're in that kind of crossover of like, I'm not entirely certain. And they met one of our bear siblings, and he was like, you're here. You are who you are, and we accept you for who you are. Welcome. Come hang out with us, come be with us, come be community. And so I think that we have, the who's in the zoo, the bears, the otters, the cougars, and we have these kind of fun idea of like what they are, the Urban Dictionary definitions. But ultimately, like, if those are groups of people that you feel like you identify with, like, go hang out with them. Like, be that.
People are people, no matter what banner they gather under. And they're each going to be individuals, but we can use these labels to maybe find somebody that we can resonate with.
Right.
Go ahead. I like to use labels to accurately describe experiences. Like, they're descriptive, not prescriptivist, but I like to be as accurate as possible. So that's one of the reasons I'm curious about these labels.
People are hard to categorize.
Figure out which one I would fall under too, that sort of thing.
Yeah. I think we also have multiple labels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, my box is covered in labels.
Well, one thing I think about so when people make these spaces and they're public spaces, you've got events, things like it mentioned munches and things like that. Like, a lot of it, you don't have to be the thing to go to the thing, because people are there doing stuff and they want people to be there. That's the whole point. So sometimes if you're leaning in a direction and you're not sure, you can still go to those spaces and see, because it's hard to know. There's definitions, and it's hard to know which one you're going to click with until you get to kind of experience it. But you don't have to have the answers to experience it.
Reading it on the page is not how you learn about yourself in that sense.
Well, I think our labels evolve over time, right? Because I think if you would have talked to like 18, 19-year-old me, I was like staunchly bisexual. Like, I had just come out of the like bi closet. I think it's probably more like the quilt chest. I don't know. But I'm like, I identified as bisexual for a long time, and it took me this, evolution of person to now be like, I'm queer, like, and then to take on a bear label, but also, our identities change over time.
Yeah,
I mean,
people are fluid, people grow, people change.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I used to think I was cis, and then I woke up one day and I was like, holy shit, I'm actually agender, asexual, and aromantic. I'm like, I can't believe I didn't realize this before.
That is an experience I know well.
And it's
I
like,
just woke up one day and I was like, holy crap. So social gender constructs, they're not real. I can do whatever the hell I want.
right? We can do whatever the hell we want. And like, it's really amazing when you step into that space and you're like, fuck it, I am who I am. Like, and when you get those words, that you can like string together and bring other people who are interested in like things, you know, and have similar experiences. I think that's that community building piece, because we ultimately, we want to belong and we want to be with others, and you know, for, you know, even our introverted folks, like, you know, there are online communities or other, you know, communities where they grow and blossom and exchange ideas, you know.
Yeah, since I'm like aro ace and I'm not very kinky, I have like zero idea in any of this or no experience. So I have no idea what these terms mean, how they're applied. It's been a long journey finding out for myself.
Yeah, and I just appreciate your both your curiosity, because as humans, I think we can very quickly be assigned a gender and an orientation and a lot of these labels at birth, and then we don't really stop to ask about them. So anytime I hear a human being expressing some curiosity around, well, what else is out there, and how might it fit me to try that on? But also there is a allyship component here. I don't think that we all need to have like sophisticated opinions on whether or not this person constitutes an otter. That can get really messy and gross really quickly.
Right.
But having an interest in some of these labels and a shared vocabulary has a lot of value.
Well, and I think as we continue to evolve, as, you know, we deconstruct gender and we deconstruct sexuality, and we, you know, are breaking it apart and re-assimilating it in different areas. Like, you know, I'm perpetually involved in kind of community conversations, and I hear terms and things, and I'm like, fuck, am I old? Like, you know, like I heard another term the other day, and I was like, what is that? I don't know what that is. Like, you know, I'm on the breath of 40, and you know, they're sweet summer child. But
I'm only 27, and this is the first I'm hearing of some of these things too.
But one thing I will also say is, and this is a lot of sort of queer spaces and a lot of, I'm going to say kink spaces. Sometimes a lot of the spaces are, like we've mentioned before, there's lots of overlap. And I know that a lot of queer spaces can feel very compulsory sexuality-y.
Yeah.
And that, I know, like...
I learned that the hard way.
Right. And I think, I know for myself, a lot of time, there have been spaces where I have a lot of things in common with a lot of the people there, and I'm interested in exploring that space. But, I mean, I'm asexual, too. So I'm not going to be, you know, touting my sexual anythings. And I think, like, a lot of these spaces are, even if if it's a very sex positive space, that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be all sexy all the time. So,
like, shout out to queer platonic relationships,
yes.
Right? Like, I've found some of my most amazing friends in these queer platonic relationship spaces, and even like coming out of potentially sexual relationships with other queer folk, being like, hey, we can maintain this space where we still have a deep connection, but we're not sexually intimate anymore, but we still value each other as family and friends and community. You know, and you have those really intimate bonds with someone, but like, shout out to queer platonic relationships, man. Like, co-parenting like kids as queers, like, that's a huge thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I am the village that raises the child.
right.
Yes, and honestly, I am still a 5, so I'm like in my village. Like, I'm still finding my village.
Yeah. I do have a couple questions. There's critters. What's critter space and what are pets?
Yeah, so there's the so we talk about puppy play, and you see pups all the time, or they're kind of the most most visually represented pup community.
The poster animal.
Yeah, the
is
poster
the
animal.
Pup culture,
so, so pets and critters are other animal dynamics or other animal spirits that are taken on, because we don't want to say that everyone...
They're kind of gender. I get that now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so, you know, like, I like to joke that I'm a fluffy white domesticated house cat like Marie from Aristocats. Like, you know, we don't start fights, but we end them. right?
The
But
spirit animal has always been the octopus.
yeah, I mean, we see crossover into fur culture, furries, but there's scalies, which are, and dragons, and all kinds of, you have mythical animals, mythical creatures.
The furry community is freaking awesome.
I tend to agree,
I'm very impressed with the creativity, and there's a lot of crossover with the long furby community and the furry community. So,
I mean, when you get into the weird queer stuff, we keep talking about Venn diagrams, and yeah, a lot of this all comes together. So, Whisper, I really appreciate your questions. Was there anything else before we move on for the night?
Let's see. Did you answer what critter was?
Yeah, so critter is a more inclusive term that we use because
Catch-all, other?
It's a more inclusive term because we're not all puppies, and pet implies that you might be a domesticated house animal, like so you're someone's
Is
pet.
that like a kink thing?
It can be. It can also just be a headspace place.
Sure. And I'll actually say we are talking about pet space in particular on this show in 2 weeks. So I'll really encourage you to tune in then because we are going to be talking about, yes, like pet play, but in particular that kind of mindset that goes into it. But please continue.
So critter is this attempt at a more inclusive term to not necessarily say pup or puppy and not necessarily say pet, meaning like domesticated house pet, but to say that we are, inclusive of raccoons and dragons and, outdoor tomcat kitties, just a more holistic approach to pet play.
It's kind of like
Animal play.
almost like a headspace or a symbolism of a part of yourself. So if someone was, I'm a feral anarchist, they might be leaning more towards the, eat trash, do crime, raccoon type thing.
I like that we were on the same vibe with that.
It's kind of like, I guess, animal symbolism for a part of your personality and who you are. Would that be a kind of accurate-ish way?
Yeah.
Yeah, a form of expression, connecting with one piece of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.